Tie me kangaroo down, sport, tie me kangaroo down. Tie me kangaroo down, sport, tie me kangaroo down. Vapman here, and here are the Vaps. Here my buddies, that's right, you can see there's a bit of resemblance. And here are the Vaps that do all the work, that's right. They make sure that your visa is issued correctly and things go nice and smooth. Okay, so today we're doing Australia Tourist Visa. Australia Tourist Visa, that's right. And there's three types of Australia Tourist Visa. There's the ETA, there's the E-Visa, and there's a paper visa. And if you're eligible for the ETA or the E-Visa, do them, because obviously they're quicker, they're cheaper, they're online and so on. But if not, you'll need to do a paper visa, okay? And today's video is an instruction video on the paper visa, on the form, on the process, and how to maybe help you. Basically, we're based in New Zealand, so this is specifically videos aimed at people who are applying or resident in New Zealand, because of course we have to send them into the consulate here. However, the application process is very similar all over the world, so if you're living somewhere else, you just need to find an Australian consulate or embassy near you, and there are dozens of them, okay, and you follow the procedure, or you follow the same similar procedure with them, okay? So that's the beginning. Okay, so now the four things you do: you download the form, and it's a 30-page form. That's right, it's a bit of a mare. And download the form, and then you've got to fill it in. Makes sense, right? And then you've got to have various things like you've got to gather some required docs. You've got to have your passport, you've got to have your photo, you've got a bank statement, and depending on your application, you might have other things to gather as well. You then send that into the consulate nearby you, and you get an acceptance within a couple of days. That's not an approval, that's an acceptance, and it means that you can go and do your biodata, which is your fingerprint stuff, okay? And there's 5 centres in New Zealand to do that. And then after 10 to 30 days, you get an approval. That's right, hopefully. And away you go. That's right. Good stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the form. We're going to whiz through it, and I'm going to show you some VAP alerts. So the red things are like VAP alerts, which means these are things that often people have a little trouble with, or forget to fill in, or fill in incorrectly, and so on. So the first VAP alert on page 1 is on the length of stay in Australia, because sometimes people confuse that with the length of the visa. So if you're going to Europe for a year and you want to stop for a week on the way out and a week on the way back, you put under 3 months, because it's how long you want to stay in Australia for each of those stops, not the length of they'll issue your visa for a year anyway if they see that's your itinerary, assuming they're happy with you. So that's the first little VAP alert there. Page 2, there's just some basic details, passport information, various stuff there. It's fairly straightforward. Page 3 is what I call the VAP fun page. This is where they ask all those questions about criminality and medical and stuff, and you've got to put no everywhere, otherwise it's going to be hell to pay. No, but seriously, so there's 3 questions. No, there are 3 questions on criminality. That's right. 1, have you ever had a criminal record? 2, have you ever had a criminal record which is now off the books? And 3, have you ever had coffee or tea with anyone who's involved in criminality at all? So, I don't know how you answer that question. And the last one, which I really love, is have you ever been involved in terrorism, torture, or slavery? So you're going to put yes to that, right? So yeah, you're going to put no there, of course. However, there is a serious part. If you do have an old criminal record, even something that is really old or minor, you need to put it on here and put in the details, because you know the worst is if they find out, and you know how everyone's talking to each other, is if they find out during the process, or even worse, you get to Australia and you get denied boarding or sent back. So yeah, make sure there is a serious side to this fun page, and you make sure you get it right. Okay, on page 4, there is this is details. There's a VAP alert here because people often don't fill this in properly. But family members travelling with you, and family members, immediate family members who are not travelling with you, including, and this is tough for the guys, the date of birth. So you usually get the name and the address of their relationship to you, but date of birth as well, okay? Not really funny, okay? Or not for the Australian tourist people, or consulate. And further down, even more important, is have you got any relatives in Australia, okay? So again, name, address, and also their status in Australia and the date of birth. So you might need to make a couple of phone calls for that if you've got relatives in Australia, because you can't just leave that out, okay? Next page, so we got page 6, and this is 5, and this is basically, have you got any friends or contacts in Australia? So same idea, name, address, status in Australia, and date of birth. Okay, so that's contacts in Australia. And page 6 is health, Basically, they're paranoid about people coming to Australia and using their health facilities. So, you know, be careful when you're filling this in to make sure you don't give them any ideas. Okay, so page 7, this is what I call the money page. This is where you've got to say how much you're taking with you. In fact, they only want or need, you only need 66 Australian dollars a day, but it's always good to have, I usually say have a couple of 2,000 or 3,000, because the worst is to send a bank statement in, and we've had these with $10 in it. It doesn't look good. Okay, so if you have 2,000 or 3,000, you're spending a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, you've got 1,000 a week, looks pretty impressive if you've got the money. And also details of a credit card, so because they are paranoid that people want you to stay in Australia forever, a bit like the Americans. Okay, page 8. Page 8 is okay, so this is if you've got relatives in Australia or friends, and they're going to pay for part or whole of your trip. If so, you've got to fill in their details: name, address, status, and date of birth, and also a bank statement for them, so to show that they've got money even though you haven't got any. Yeah, so they want a bank statement, and they want a proof of address, so they want a utilities bill. Strange things must go in Australia, but yeah, they want to prove that that person can actually look after you. Okay, so that's page 8. Page 9. Okay, page 9 is basically if you fill this form in for someone else, family member, or for someone who doesn't speak English, you've got to fill that in there, and that can sometimes catch people out. Page 10 is the money page. This is fun, yeah, working it out. Yeah, there's a tourist fee, there's a biometrics fee, there's a fee for a middleman, and there's also a credit card fee. So you've got to add all those together and send it in with the application. Good luck. Okay, that's good. So what do you send in with the application? Well, I've got the visas and passports checklist here because I find it easier to read. But basically, you've got to send in a data page in PDF. Okay, you've got to send in your New Zealand visa, show it's up to date. Not that it expires in 2 weeks' time. It's got to show reasonable length of validity. Okay, and you've got to send in your last entry stamp. Okay, so that's important to send all those things in. It's listed here. And also another VAP alert is for you need a letter from your employer. Okay, to show that they love you, you love them. You're going to come back to New Zealand or wherever you're living, and or you could have something like a tenancy, a rental tenancy agreement, or property deeds or something, just to show that you want to come home, come back here. Okay, 2 pages, a bit of a long checklist. Make sure it's done properly. They're really pedantic. So you send that in. Within a couple of days, you'll get an acceptance, not approval. As I said, this is an acceptance of your application, and also they'll give you a number and so on, and also basically you can go in to do your biometrics with your fingerprints. So there's 5 centres in New Zealand. There's Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, Dunedin and Queenstown, and I think 2 of them, I think it's Dunedin and Christchurch, are only open twice a week. So if you've got limited time, be careful, because as I said, they can take, particularly on busy times, they can take the full 30 days and sometimes even longer. Okay, so that's there. And after 10 to 30 days, hopefully you'll get an approval like this. That's right, it comes an email. Make sure that everything's right, because if anything's wrong, it could create problems, particularly on check-in, or worse, when you arrive in Australia. So make sure your passport, your date of birth, all that stuff is correct. Print it off, stick it with your travel docs or in your passport, because, you know, even though it's done electronically, so it should be fine, it's nothing better than having peace of mind and having the actual document with you. Okay, so just to wrap that up, the Australian Tourist Visa is a bit of a mare. It's a nightmare for some people. I mean, particularly if you don't speak great English, and it's a long form, they're pedantic and so on and so forth, and sometimes they want additional information or documents and so on, which can really be quite stressful for people. But hopefully this video will have explained a bit, and you can go back and look at it and so on, little parts of it to make it easier. I've only shown you a certain amount of pages. There are more pages, but they don't have VAP alerts, so you just got to go work through the document. So you can do it yourself, or you can use these guys. Yeah, the VAPs. Not them because they're drunk, but these ones, yeah, they've done thousands of tourist visas for Australia. They know exactly what the consulate's looking for, and of course they've got inside. They know some people. They know people in the consulate as well, so that's helpful, and it can smooth things away and often make the visa get issued quicker. So use the VAPs or do it yourself. Check you later.